morning. Page 467, part 7. This is volume 3. This is the last part. There is no part 8, if I recall correctly. Stalin is no more. Neither repented they of their murders. Revelation 9:21. So I looked it up. You guys probably know better than myself what it's referring to. The verse follows a description of demonic plague and emphasizes that such judgments did not lead to repentance, but rather to a further hardened heart. And the message of the verse is the refusal of the survivors to repent or turn away from their evil deeds, even after witnessing the death of 1/3 of humanity. You can see why he chose it. Quite fitting. Some of the verse reference murder, sorcery, sexual immorality, and thefts or dishonesty, I suppose. The verse highlights the profound spiritual hardening and stubbornness of mankind during judgment, refusing to abandon wicked habits, even when faced with destruction. Oh, that's so true. Aren't we all guilty? Thank you for being here for the last part. Very exciting. Page 471. Chapter 1. Looking back on it all. We never, of course, lost hope that our story would be told. This note at passages in part 7, which were set in smaller type in the Russian edition, have been omitted from the English translation at the author's request as being of limited interest to the non-Russian reader. We never, of course, lost hope that our story would be told. Sooner or later, the truth is told about all that has happened in history. But in our imagining, this would come in the rather distant future, after most of us were dead, and in a completely changed situation. I thought of myself as a chronicler of the archipelago. I wrote and wrote, but I too had little hope of seeing it in print in my lifetime. History is forever springing surprises even on the most perspicacious of us. We could not foresee what it would be like. How for no visible, compelling reason, the earth would shudder and give. How the gates of the abyss would briefly, grudgingly part, so that 2 or 3 birds of truth would fly out before they slammed to stay shut for a long time to come. So many of my predecessors had not been able to finish writing, or to preserve what they had written, or to crawl or scramble to safety. But I had this good fortune, to thrust the first handful of truth through the open jaws of the iron gates before they slammed shut again. Like matter enveloped by antimatter, it exploded instantaneously. Its explosion touched off in turn an explosion of letters. That was to be expected, but also an explosion of newspaper articles, written with gritted teeth, with ill-concealed hatred and resentment, an explosion of official praise that left a sour taste in my mouth. When former Zeks heard this fanfare from all the newspapers in unison, learned that some sort of story about the camps had come out, and that the journalists were slavering over it. Their unanimous conclusion was, more lying nonsense, nothing safe from those crafty lives. That our newspapers, with their habitual immoderation, might suddenly start falling over each other to praise the truth was something no one could possibly imagine. Some of them were reluctant to risk soiling their hands on my story. But when they started reading it, a single groan broke from all those thousands, a groan of joy and of pain. Letters poured in. I treasure those letters. Only too rarely do our fellow countrymen have a chance to speak their mind on matters of public concern, as former prisoners still more rarely. Their faith had proved false. Their hopes had been cheated so often. Yet now they believed that the era of truth was really beginning, and that at last it was possible to speak and write boldly. And they were disappointed, of course, for the 100th time. Truth has prevailed, but too late, they wrote. Even later than they thought, because it still by no means prevailed. There were also some sober people who did not put their names at the end of their letters. I must think of my health for the little time. For the little time left to me. Or who asked point blank, while the journalistic adulation was at white heat, why, I wonder, did Vol.3 allow you to publish this story? Perhaps. Please answer. I'm worried in case you're in the punishment cells, or why haven't you and Tvardovsky both been put away? Because their trap has jammed and failed to work, that's why. What then must the Volkovoys do? Take up their pens, like the rest, write letters themselves, or refutations in the press? And indeed they proved to be remarkably literate. From the second stream of letters we learned their names and how they described themselves. We had been looking for the right term for so long. Camp bosses, camp personnel. No, practical workers, that was it. Golden words, these. Chekists. But somehow not quite right. Practical workers, that's the term they prefer. And they write. Ivan Denisovich is today. V.V. Olenik. Aktubinsk. One feels for Zhukov. Excuse me. Neither compassion nor respect. Why, Mariev, Moscow. Zhukov was rightly convicted. What should a sec be doing on the outside anyway? VII Sverdlovsk. These submen and their shabby little souls were dealt with too leniently by the courts. I feel no pity for people whose behavior during the Fatherland War was dubious. E.A. Ignatovich Kimovsk. Excuse me. Zhukov is a highly skilled, resourceful, ruthless scavenger, the consummate egoist, living only for its belly. V.D. Uspensky, Moscow. Instead of portraying the destruction of the most loyal citizens in 1937, the author has chosen 1941, when it was mainly self-seekers who landed in jail. In 1937, there were no Zhukovs, and people went to their deaths in grim silence, wondering why anyone needed all this. P.A. Pankov, Kramatorsk. on conditions in the camps. Why give a lot of food to those who do not work? Their energy remains unexpended. I say the criminal world is treated far too gently. S.I. Golovin, Akamalinsk. Where rations are concerned, we shouldn't forget one thing, that they are not a holiday resort. They must atone for their guilt with honest toil. Sergeant Major Bazanov of Ormukon, age 55, grown gray in the camp service. There are fewer abuses of authority in the camps than in any other Soviet institution. I can affirm that things are now stricter in the camps. V. Karakanov, Moscow area. This story is an insult to the soldiers, sergeants, and officers of the MOOP. The people are makers of history, but how are the people portrayed here? As screws, blockheads, idiots? Bazanov. We, the executors, were also human. We were also capable of heroism. We did not shoot every fallen prisoner, and by not doing so, risked our posts. Grigory Trofimovich Shelesnyak. In the story, the whole day is filled brimful with the negative behavior of prisoners, and the role of the administration is not shown, but the detention of prisoners in camps was not because of all that happened in the period of the personality cult, but is simply connected with the execution of the sentence. A.I. Grigoriev. Interesting. Is that meant to be like that? All those words written together? The guards did not know why any particular prisoner was inside. Karakanov. Solzhenitsyn describes the whole work of the camp as though there was no party leadership there at all, but party organization existed then just as they do now, and guided all our work according to their conscience. Practical workers only carried out what standing orders, periodic instructions, and operative instructions from above demanded of them. The same people who were working there then work there still. Perhaps some 10% of the personnel are new. They have been repeatedly commended for their work, enjoy a good professional reputation. All on the staff of MOOP are fired with outrageous indignation. The spiteful bitterness of this work is simply astounding. He is deliberately trying to turn the people against the MVD. Why do our organs allow people to lampoon MOOP personnel? This is dishonorable. Anna Filipovna Zakharova, Irkutsk province. In the MVD since 1950, party member since 1956. Just listen to it. This is dishonorable, a cry from the heart. For 45 years they tortured the natives, and that was honorable. But someone publishes a story about it, and that's dishonorable. I've never before had to swallow such trash. And this is not just my opinion. Many of us feel the same. Our name is Legion. In short, Solzhenitsyn's story should be withdrawn immediately from all libraries and reading rooms. A. Kuzmin, Orel. Withdrawn it was, but by easy stages. This book should not have been published. The material should have been handed over to the organs of the KGB instead. Anonymous. It's a Koval of October. October's contemporary shows insight. It very nearly happened that way. Here's another, anonymous, a poet this time. Hear me, O Russia. Our souls are unspotted, our conscience unblemished. That accursed incognito again. It would be nice to know whether he had shot people himself, or merely sent them to their deaths, or whether he's just an ordinary Orthodox citizen. But alas, he's anonymous, anon, spotless anon. Finally, we have the broad philosophical view. History has never had need of the past, and the history of socialist culture needs it least of all. A. Kuzmin. History has no need of the past. That's the conclusion our loyalists are left with. What then does it need? The future, perhaps? And these are the people who write our history. What retort can we make to them all, faced with their massive ignorance? How can we make them understand? Truth, it seems, is always bashful, easily reduced to silence by the too blatant encroachment of falsehood. The prolonged absence of any free exchange of information within a country opens up a gulf of incomprehension between whole groups in the population, between millions and millions. We simply cease to be a single people, for we speak, indeed, different languages. Nonetheless, a breakthrough had been made. Oh, it was stout, the wall of lies. It looked so insecure, looked built to last forever, but a breach yawned and news broke through. Only yesterday had we had no camps, no archipelago, and today there they were for the whole people, the whole world to see. Prison camps, camps, what is more, of the fascist type. What was to be done, you whose skill in turning things inside out is of many years standing, you venerable panegyrists? Surely you won't put up with that. You surely won't quail. Men like you give way to this. Of course they wouldn't. The distortion experts rushed unbidden into the breach. They might have been waiting all those years just for this, to cover the breach with their grey-winged bodies and with the joyous, yes, joyous, flapping of their wings, to hide the archipelago in its nakedness from the astonished spectators. Their first cry, which came to them instinctively in a flash, was, "It will never happen again. All praise to the party. It will never happen again." Such clever fellows, such expert gap-stoppers. Obviously, it will never happen. If it will never happen again, this automatically implies that it is not happening today. There will be nothing of the sort in the future, so of course it cannot exist today. So cleverly did they flap their wings before the breach that the archipelago became a mirage almost as soon as it rose into view. It does not exist. It will not exist. If you really must, you can just about say that it did exist once upon a time. But of course, that was in the days of the personality cult. Very convenient, this personality cult. Trot it out boldly and pretend you've explained something. Why manifestly does exist? What manifestly does exist? What is left to us? What fills the breach? What will endure forever is all praise to the party. Praise is apparently due in the first place because it can't happen again, but very shortly it begins to sound like praise for the archipelago. The two things merge and cannot be separated. On every side we heard it, even before they got hold of the magazine with my story in it. All praise to the party, even before they reached the passage about how Volkov used to lay on the lash cries of all praise to the party. lay on with the lash. Vol.3 used to lay on with the lash. Cries of all praise to the party thundered all around. In this way, the cherubim of the lie, the guardians of the wall, dealt with the first moment of danger admirably. Okay, I have to stop there today. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.